What's going on YouTube? So when you first think of Subaru, the first model that probably pops in your head is the Outback, since it has long had a very unique identity. But it's time for a full redesign, and that's exactly what we have next to us today. This is the all-new 2026 Outback. This might just be the biggest change this model has ever undergone, with a much more SUV-like appearance, modernized interior, and all-new tech. But is this the best Outback ever? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Like always, let's get things started with a very quick spec dump. So the next-gen Outback will continue to be offered with two powertrains. We have the more powerful one, the XT, which is a 2.4-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine, making 260 horsepower. It's paired to a standard symmetrical all-wheel drive system and a Leanertronic CVT, and the combined fuel economy is 24 mpg.
Now, the base price in 2026 is around $35,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price.
But we need to close up the hood because we've got a lot to talk about with this new exterior as well as new interior. So like I mentioned in the introduction, really the first thing you might notice about this next generation of the Outback is the fact that it has a much more SUV-like appearance overall than the previous generations. And I think that really begins a lot up here in the front. So you'll see that this is a pretty big deviation from the previous generations in the fact that it's a lot more squared off. The grille itself is quite chunky and squared off, especially compared to other Subaru products, such as the Forester. Now, there's going to be several trims of this model, of course. We've got the top-end Touring today. So you notice we have a matte black finish to the grille, a gloss black accent that goes across the top, and then, of course, you continue to have that signature Subaru cladding, which goes all across the bottom here. Now, as far as ground clearance is concerned, I should go ahead and mention this has 8.7 inches of ground clearance. There will be a future Wilderness trim that has more ground clearance, but that model is going to have a little bit later availability than the rest of the trim lineup. Now, as we move over here to the lighting, this also is a pretty big deviation for the Subaru brand. It's their first model with a split headlight arrangement now, so you can see at the top here, we have an LED daytime running light and turn signal indicator. And then down below, we have the actual headlight housing, which is a projector LED as standard on all models with adaptive abilities, which is quite nice. Also standard is the LED fog light. Now, there's no longer a base trim for this next generation, so that means that an 18-inch alloy becomes standard equipment for 2026. However, we have a 19-inch alloy here on our Touring XT, and you also get that on the Limited XT as well. That's the largest wheel size that Subaru's ever offered on the Outback. As you can see, we've got a really nice-looking contrast design. Now, in terms of the cladding, of course, you have kind of a squared-off appearance. I think that, again, is playing into that more SUV-like appearance that we have for 2026. And then we've got a gloss black finish up here on our mirrors. In terms of the technology, heating and blind spot monitoring are both standard equipment, and then Touring models come with power folding.
Now, we've been talking a lot about how this new Outback looks more like an SUV than ever before, but in terms of overall vehicle length, it really doesn't grow that much for this new generation. It's up about 0.4 inches over the previous model, which means about 191 inches in overall vehicle length. But really the thing that you're going to notice more is the fact that this is taller than previous Outbacks by about 1.4 inches. That does mean that you'll have more cargo volume and headroom inside the cabin, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Now, in terms of other design touches, you have a little bit of cladding down here at the bottom. You have this piece that's going to be finished in a body color, and then every single Outback will have the raised roof rails that are capable of holding about 800 pounds of weight. Now, as we head around to the rear for this new model, a completely new look for this Outback, that's for sure. So, like we've been mentioning, they really kind of went radical with this new design. And I have to say, it does, still maintain those typical Outback elements, but looks thoroughly very modern. Now, here in the back, you'll notice that it's a little bit more squared off than the previous Outbacks. That does contribute to the better cargo capacity. And let's talk about some individual design elements. So we have a little bit of a lip spoiler right through here. We also have a wiper right in this section. And then let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights have been updated to actually go full length all the way across the back. And they're pretty premium in terms of the lighting elements themselves. So all of your accenting is LED. You have an LED brake light and an LED reverse light. The only thing that is not LED LED is your turn signal. That's an amber incandescent turn signal. Now, through the back, we have Outback branding, and then dropping down, typical Subaru design. So a lot of cladding. You have Subaru stamped into the cladding itself. And as far as tow rating, the standard engine tows about 2,700 pounds, and this XT is capable of towing around 3,500 pounds. And let's talk safety. It's a Subaru after all. So in terms of all the safety equipment, you do get all 4 active safety features on every single Outback model. That will now newly include reverse auto braking. That used to be reserved for your higher end examples. But what is reserved for your higher end examples is a very cool system, and that's only here on the Touring. It's a hands-free driving assist system. Now, it will be later availability, but it will allow for some hands-free driving on mapped roads at speeds of up to 85 miles per hour. So that's certainly a nice addition to the Outback lineup. But guys, there's a completely new cabin that we need to talk about on the inside. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the interior. First, here's our Subaru key fob. It's the same key fob they've used for a number of years. You have a standard smart entry system on board. That means, regardless of the trim you select, you can just reach behind the handle here. That will unlock the door and fold the mirrors outward here on this top spec model. And then let's check out the interior. So, as you may have noticed with a lot of Subaru models, they have been using kind of a very similar interior design, but as soon as you look inside this Outback, you can tell this really is a totally new interior that's completely distinct from the rest of the lineup. But before we dig into all those exciting details, let's first start with our seats. So you're going to begin with Subaru's Star Tex, which is a faux leather. When you move to the limited trim, you graduate to real leather seating. And then when you get to this touring trim, that's where you get Nappa leather seats. So Nappa leather is one of your more premium grades of leather. And indeed, we have a very soft and supple feel on board. Also, we have a special Java brown interior option for this trim level. And as you can see, that looks quite upscale overall. And you got some nice stitching details throughout. As far as the seats, they're always at least 10-way power adjusting, but the top model gets an additional 2 ways of lumbar support, and we have a manual thigh extension as well. And then limited and touring trims also come with memory seats located right there on the door trim. Let's go ahead and climb inside. Now closing up the door, let's see if the cabin materials are as premium as the seats throughout this touring interior. So starting out on the door trim, we have a leather material with a stitched detail. We have a stitched center section finished in that same brown color and a soft touch material across the top. As we move to the upper dashboard, this is all finished in a textured soft touch plastic. The center section is finished again in the stitched brown leatherette that goes all through here under our vents. And then down here on the lower panels, we actually don't have any padding through here, but everything does feel nice and solidly put together. We even have a bit of almost a faux wood texturing around the cup holders. And now let's fire it up with the push button start. Now that the vehicle is fired up, we can just jump straight into some of the big changes, and I think one of the most profound changes with this interior is certainly the technology. So as you can see, we've got a full digital gauge cluster. This is a standard feature actually on this new Outback. It's 12.3 inches, and you can reconfigure it with a few different designs, including the ability to put some map data, as you can see right there in the gauge cluster itself. That's from Google Maps on Android Auto, and that certainly looks quite nice overall. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that some of the competition in this segment do give you a head-up display, and this one, it does not offer that on any trim. Now, as we come back to the steering wheel, we've got kind of that traditional Subaru design. It has a standard leatherette wrapping, and you have manual tilt and telescoping across the lineup. Limited and touring trims will also get steering wheel heating. Now, let's turn over here and take a look at interior storage, because Subaru actually said they focused a lot on making this center area more versatile than ever before. So as we open up our center console, first of all, you'll see one that is enlarged over the previous generation. It's quite deep overall, even though it's not super wide. We don't have our donuts with us today because we're all the way across the country from Kentucky, but we do look forward to testing it out with the donut test back home soon. Now, in front of that, you have a little storage cubby right there, your 12-volt outlet. You have 2 cup holders, which are redesigned to accommodate more types of beverages than ever before, Subaru said. And we also have a much larger area up here in the front, which houses the wireless phone charging pad for limited and touring trim levels. Now, there's some other things I want to point out. One of those is the fact we have a passenger storage shelf over there, so you can stick different belongings on the passenger side. And then we have our USB connections, but we also have this new little cutout here. This actually allows the wire to pass through there and kind of hold it in place so that it doesn't get tangled up over here. As far as the shifter is concerned, just a traditional style shifter. Pull back for drive, bump over here to the left if you want to go through some simulated gear changes. And you also have paddles on the steering wheel for this trim level. When we go into reverse, here is our 360-degree camera system. So I can tell right away this is definitely enhanced over what any previous Subaru model was giving you with the camera technology. Much better resolution. We also have some different views that we can switch between quite cleverly. This is going to be included on the Touring trim level and also all the XT trim levels. And then let's go to P for park. You also have your electronic parking brake with your auto brake hold located right there with a new physical button this year, as well as having a physical button for your auto start stop, turning it on and off, and your 360 camera. And I think that's a great transition to what you'll find as the next thing up the dashboard, and that is new physical controls for our climate controls. So Subaru said they definitely listened to customer feedback. As you may remember, the Outback previously, as well as pretty much the rest of the Subaru lineup, have that big old display that runs down the center section and has mostly climate controls inside the screen. Well, that is now gone, so you don't have to wait for the screen to boot up to do some basic functions like adjust your temperature with these nice knobs. And you have, of course, again, physical controls for every single climate function for the dual zone automatic setup. Now, you also have a physical button for your 3-stage heated seats, which are standard on every Outback for 2026, and we also have the ventilated seats, which are on your upper end examples. Furthermore, we have a physical volume knob up here to control our audio system. So Limited and Up come with a Harman Kardon sound system. Let's give that a sample right now. Okay, very nice. I have to say, very impressed by the sound of this sound system. This segment of vehicle, some of the upper end sound systems really are not that great. This definitely seems like it has a much more full sound, more robust, and of course plenty of bass if you like that as well. All right, so now let's get into this new display. So again, it's a totally different look from what you had previously. You ditch that kind of portrait style display and go for a more conventional look. This is a 12.1 inch display with kind of a squared off shape to it. Right now, what I'm in is Android Auto. As I mentioned earlier, you have both wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay standard on all models, as well as having this display itself standard on all trims for 2026. Let me navigate back, though, to the main software system, because this is a brand new system for Subaru. It's a totally new software, and as you can see, the layout looks completely different. You've got this splash screen here. You also have your built-in TomTom maps on your top-end examples. That's what that's going to look like right there. And then you have that menu structure where you have your main functions kind of floating over there, so you can very quickly get into your music or back to Android Auto, things like that super quickly. And you have additional applications located over here on the side. Up top, you'll find a auto-dimming mirror on many of the models, and then the top trim will give you the rear camera mirror ability, as well as HomeLink remotes. We have a pretty interesting looking headliner up here across the top, and then let me go ahead and open up the sunroof here. This is a standard size sunroof. This is what will be included on Limited and Touring trims as standard equipment, but you can option it on to other trim levels as well.
Now let's talk about the rear seat area for this Outback. Now, like I said, at the side of this vehicle, we have, some more space here in the rear as compared to what the Outback was previously. So let's go ahead and start by talking about that. So we're looking at 39.5 inches of legroom, 39.1 inches of headroom. The headroom is really where we see the increases for this new generation. That's about an inch more headroom. And I have to say, I'm 5'9" for reference. There is still tons and tons of headroom back here. We also don't have like a panoramic moonroof or anything. So there's just lots and lots of headroom. It feels spacious back here. I think that's a very nice improvement. Of course, we brought along the official Car Confections ruler. Like I said, I'm 5'9". This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and our realistic knee room figure is really good as well. About 9 inches of knee room is what you can expect. Also, my feet can slide up underneath of these seats. And speaking of the seats, they're really comfortable here in the back, so I'm happy to tell you that. And they also do have the ability to recline a decent distance, although it's not a ton. Now, you will just have bench seating here in the back on all models. And then if we fold down the center armrest, we have 2 cup holders inside, a nice armrest. And let's also talk about some of the features. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this as well. We have vents right through here in the center section. We also have 2 USB ports, a Type-C and a Type-A variety. And limited and touring trims will also get heated back seats. So definitely a lot of nice features. Also, I am liking that you have quite a lot of seat pocket storage as well, 2 of them on both of the seats. Now, let's take a look over at your door trim. Door trim's going to be nicely done. They actually didn't cheap out on the materials, so the upper part is a nice soft touch plastic. We have leather all through the center section, as well as on the armrest portion. And then there's also a ton of door storage. That's also up in the front. You have really a lot of door storage in all 4 doors on this model, which is definitely appreciated. Walking up to the tailgate, we now have a standard hands-free power tailgate on every single Outback. Let's go ahead and see how much cargo capacity you have as well. I think that's another area where Subaru is really focused and listened to buyer feedback. And when it comes to cargo capacity numbers, we're sitting at about 35 cubic feet behind the second row of seats. If we fold those seats down, which I do have 2 handles to easily fold those seats down, I definitely like that as well. They fold 60-40 split, by the way. That's going to reveal 80 cubic feet as a maximum cargo capacity. For those of you familiar with the Outback, you will notice that that's about 5 cubic feet more as a maximum as compared to the previous generation, and about 2 cubic feet more behind the second row of seats. So definitely a welcome addition of a little bit more space for 2026. And speaking of, maybe some of the rivals you could be cross-shopping this model against, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. There are a lot of choices that you can look at in the 2-row midsize segment or the compact SUV segment, and we've gone through each option in each of those segments and ranked them in the most important categories. So if cargo capacity is most important to you, you can see your best options in that area, as well as things like luxury, powertrain choices, value. All of that's detailed there for you. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, definitely check that out and use our tools on our website. Now, back to this model. Like I said, the seats do fold 60-40 split. They are completely flat with the floor. And let's go ahead and get our cargo length, width, and height figures. As far as cargo length is concerned, behind Drew's 5'8" driving position, we're looking at about 79 inches of length. That's very good. From behind the second row of seats, about 41 inches of length. The opening, 44 inches wide. And the height is also really quite good at 31 inches tall. Now, Subaru is bragging the more squared off shape definitely allows the opening to be a bit bigger, as well as the height. And then the load in is still really good at only about 28 inches tall. Now, actually, here's a little bit of an Easter egg, but Subaru knows the importance of cargo measurements because they've actually put it on the sides here, so you can see you can fit 2 dogs, it looks like, easily, and that's 76 inches of length. And over here on this side, you can see it's 44 inches wide. So I guess my measuring is pretty accurate. I believe those are about the same numbers. Now, let's go ahead and pop up the floor. Underneath of the floor, you will find a little bit of extra space, and then underneath of here, a spare tire. Of course, that is very important for Subaru owners.
Now I want to get into some more details about the powertrain options on this next generation of the Outback. So you continue to have 2 different choices. What's going to be standard is a 2.5 liter boxer 4-cylinder engine, naturally aspirated. That makes 180 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. That's going to be ever so slightly tweaked from the previous generation. You actually have 2 less horsepower, but 2 more pound-feet of torque. So very marginal changes overall with the small tweaks that they made to help the overall refinement according to Subaru. Now, in terms of what trims this is on, this is what's going to be standard on the premium trim, the limited trim, as well as the touring trim level. Now, there also will continue to be the XT version, though, and that is going to have a 2.4-liter turbocharged boxer 4-cylinder engine. That bumps your power up quite significantly. You'll then have 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque, and that's available as an option on the limited and touring trim levels, and it will be standard equipment on the wilderness trim level once that model hits the market. As far as the transmission, you have a Lineartronic CVT across the entire lineup. And of course, it is a Subaru after all, so we have their standard symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which is a full-time all-wheel drive system. Now, we also have fuel economy ratings for both of the powertrains. The standard powertrain is rated at 27 miles per gallon combined, and the XT is rated at 24 miles per gallon combined. Both of those are actually down 1 mpg combined versus the previous generation. Now, one thing Subaru is claiming about this new model is that it has a 10% reduction in NVH, so that's noise, vibration, and harshness inside of the interior. And that is one of the many things we look forward to sharing with you very soon. So there is still a driving impressions embargo on this model until the date you see down below. So, of course, out of respect for our fellow journalists, as well as Subaru, we're not going to share any driving impressions with you just yet. But we certainly look forward to showing you all the things that this new Subaru Outback can deliver out on the road very soon at that date down below. So make sure you stay subscribed and put that in your calendar and come back to the channel.
And now we need to talk pricing for the new Outback. So this is an interesting element for this vehicle. So like Drew said at the very beginning, you no longer have the base trim. You start at the premium, so that does mean that overall prices do rise quite a lot when it comes to the base Outback, that's for sure. We started a hair under 35 grand, and compared to what the premium was last year, that's still around $4,000 more expensive. So most of the trim levels of the Outback do rise between, $4,000-ish dollars, so that's something to definitely keep in mind. But I would argue that you are getting more for this new Outback. This XT Touring starts at $47,995. That's the most expensive one as a starting point. And if you want to see what this one is, right today we have the 26 Outback Touring XT, $47,995, $1,450 destination. All told, we're sitting at $49,500. That's definitely a little bit more expensive than what it was before, so keep that in mind. Now, the VIN number here does start with a J. One of the interesting things as well is that this vehicle is manufactured in Japan for this new generation. If you're looking to buy a Subaru Outback or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that'll connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealer negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of all those things, as well as things like a monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that in our video description, as well as a pinned comment down below. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's go ahead and dive into resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for the Subaru Outback's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 63.03% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 23.73%. Now, it's worth noting those are really good resale value percentages. It's actually the third best brand overall in the 5-year metric, which is exceptionally good.
Subaru is also in the top 5 when it comes to reliability. That's why we developed the Combined Reliability Index, which takes into account several reliability studies and combines them in a way that gives you the most holistic picture. Of course, that does mean Subaru is above the overall industry average.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values or our reliability data or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you have a 3-year 36,000-mile basic warranty, a 5-year 60,000-mile powertrain. You do not get any complimentary maintenance. And guys, that wraps up our in-depth review of the all-new 2026 Subaru Outback. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and we strive to cover the latest cars on the market, so please do yourself a favor and subscribe down below. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.